The disaster at the border funny? Kamala Harris apparently thinks so, the vice president being ripped for this tone-deaf reaction to the growing crisis.
Do you plan to visit the border?
Not today, but I have before, and I'm sure I will again.
I wonder if the vice president thinks this is funny. After blocking the media for weeks, the Biden administration was forced to release some new video that shows crowded migrant facilities. But that's only after the media shamed them into doing it.
Right now, we have no access to or photos of the conditions in the facilities.
Even the Trump administration let reporters in on, supervised tours.
The Biden administration kept talking about transparency, and we're not getting any transparency here.
Blocking access to the news media is not leveling with the American people, Mr. President.
Kennedy, I think the Kamala Harris hysterical laughing fit, and she does this a lot, is a coping mechanism. It's a defense mechanism. She's uncomfortable with the question or the reality of what she's being confronted by. So in order to soothe herself and cope, she just erupts in this ridiculously timed, inappropriate laughter. And it's striking how odd it is.
I think if you cut together a montage of her laughing inappropriately at questions and situations, it would be so torturous. We'd never, ever have to think about waterboarding again. When I see that reaction, it just goes to show that, one, she has a real glitch, and two, she's a very unserious person about an incredibly serious crisis. You've got a situation where the children who are coming up from places like Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, they're not being accounted for. The ones who are unaccompanied, who knows who is taking them on that journey? Who knows how many of them don't make it? And then when they get there, it looks as though she hasn't even read her briefing book. Because, when she responds with today, she seems surprised that someone is asking that question. She should know, considering what's actually going on down there.
Greg Gutfeld, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's weird. I feel bad for the Democrats because they were grooming Kamala to take over in a year or two. And it's looking more difficult than the initial challenge. It's like they drove the car off the lot and it started giggling uncontrollably right when you turned when you turned off, and then there are no refunds. But it is kind of. I hate to play that cliched game. Imagine if it were a Republican, but if it were Ted Cruz or if it were Mike Pence chuckling at kids in cages. A, there would be violent protests. B, those protests would be encouraged by the press. C, there would be impeachment proceedings. 4, featuring a chorus of weeping Democrats. 5, dressed like extras in The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, Dana, to Greg's point, where are the Democrats demanding transparency, traveling to these facilities, kicking the door down and showing that this is intolerable and that they care and this needs to be fixed ASAP? You don't see any of that. It kind of makes you think it was all politics the last 4 years.
Well, there are a couple of Democrats. Think about Henry Cuellar, the congressman from the area. And
he's the only one.
He was the one who released that video yesterday. You don't see anybody getting behind him to support him on that side. And in fact, I think on America's Newsroom tomorrow, we're going to have a mayor from one of the border towns that you're going to want to see because he's a Democrat. He's had it with the administration, and he's not afraid to say so. Also, interestingly, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. He's been very quiet. You don't see him do a lot of media. He's got a tough race because he has to run again in 2022. His team put out word that his office had sent a strongly worded letter to the Biden administration. But you can imagine that her laughing like that about this issue will show up in campaign ads in about 13 hours, I would imagine.
Juan, what do you think? Could you see that in a campaign ad this next term?
Well, there's no limits on what you can do. You can do whatever you want. But I think, away from the caricature, the woman was on a tarmac in Florida. She clearly was not at the border. So that's what she said was, obviously, I'm not going today. Ha ha. I mean, she was not laughing, chuckling at anything to do with conditions at the border. There's no question in my mind. I don't think there should be any question in anyone's mind that the Biden administration takes this situation seriously. I mean, just think about it. They're running advertising in Central American countries to say, do not come. The cartels are lying to you. They've sent top administration officials to these Central American countries to work with them to try to repair some of the past damage and to help them stop the flow of people out of these very threatening situations in their home countries. And then at the border, you see increased numbers of not only people from Homeland Security, but now from FEMA Emergency Management. And just today, word that the Biden administration has opened another facility. The pictures that we're showing here on the 5, gee, they look pretty orderly, like the kids are being checked for health, they're getting educational instruction. This is what Biden's after, a more humane, orderly process.
Do you think they would
yes,
okay
a humane, orderly process that's in keeping with American values is exactly what I'm after.
So
and here's what else I'm after.
in the Western Hemisphere gets to come here?
I'm after Congress doing their job. Congress really realizing that they can fix the amnesty, the asylum system.
You don't need it.
Congress understanding they can pass legislation about border security that deals with the dreamers, that deals with the people here. You do, because if that was orderly, then we can have a conversation. Right now,
families,
what you get is the Congress playing politics instead of dealing with real solutions.
What are you talking
Jesse?
about? You've got the majority, and by the way, the facility that they opened in Rio Springs, Texas, hold on,
Kennedy,
that only holds 500 children. There are 565 children coming a day, so you're going to open
Kennedy,
a new
they are
facility
opening additional facilities as we speak. And just to be clear, just to be clear, Trump had the House and the Senate and the White House did zero. In fact, he damaged this situation and made it more damaging now for Biden.
Trump's fault. Got it. We got it, Juan.
Oh, get out
of
here.
Pay for flights to fly him in here, buy him hotel rooms, open up more facilities.
Oh, gosh.
Let every teenager and every family from the Western. I'm not joking like the VP.
Jesse, all you're doing is trying to belittle people who are serious about a very serious issue.
Unlike the vice president.
It's not very serious when you're laughing about it. Ahead.